Little over a month later, and we're back with another 250. This time Xenon. I'm going to preface this one by saying almost all of the gear that I'm going to show that I used for this was donated by Joanuh, and I cannot thank you enough. I don't know what I'm going to do with all of it, but I'm going to try to reuse it as much as possible because it's an incredibly generous donation. Thank you very much, Joanuh. For the gear, my drop rate gear as always, pretty much anytime I'm farming, always want this on. Killing tons and tons of mobs, you might as well get drops out of it. Pendant of Spirit in the second slot. Pretty much probably the only arcane weapon I will ever have on one of these 250s because it's pretty overkill to use an arcane weapon for a 250 mule, but again, Joanuh donated pretty much all of the good pirate equips I'm going to be hovering and all of the all stat percent accessories, so I made use of them where I could. I'm reusing my Thief Absolab set because they had percent all stat, and even if they didn't have much all stat, they gave the stats Xenon needs. And honestly, you don't really need to just focus solely on all stat. As you can see in my stat window, I have very spread out stats with luck far and away in the lead. My beautiful handcrafted helmet, bask in its glory. It's hideous, but it'll work. Drop rate earrings. The Scarlet Shoulder I'll be using for all of my pirates just because it's pretty darn handy and it rolled percent all stat for the unique potential. Pretty good. Placeholder heart. My Thief Cape, 15% attack secondary, and a 15% attack hybrid heart. Now for the real OP stuff, the percent all stats accessories. These allowed me to pretty much cheese my way through all of my weekly bosses, cheese my way up 50 additional floors in Dream Defender. Holy moly. I've never been this strong on a 250 before. It was very, very handy and very useful. Now, one thing I'll say before I get into the V-Matrix, I have Meso-Obtain as my prime line for my legendary inner ability. I would highly, highly, highly recommend, if you're going to be playing a Xenon, you get that attack speed inner ability. This class without attack speed inner feels really clunky. Like really, really clunky, especially when you're using the airship. It's super, super delayed. It makes attacking feel really awkward. So I highly recommend getting attack speed. You can get used to it eventually, but it's not worth the hassle. Now for the V-Matrix, oh my goodness gracious. Someone should have warned me. Xenon needs so many V-Matrix slots. It has every one of its skills are so useful. It's a job and a half just picking the right ones early on. But pretty much the order that they're in here is the order I would recommend putting them in as you're leveling. Because, oh man, they're just all so darn good. You want them all as early as possible, but decent holy symbol, maxed out always. You want the bonus EXP, you want that drop rate, it's great. Hypergram Field Fusion. Honestly, just, it's overpowered. It's so freaking busted. Oh my goodness. You'll see once we get to the training. This is pretty much a full map attack with a 50% uptime. It's nuts. Loaded dice because, oh my goodness, being able to lock in your 6 die rolls and having that up permanently. Who would have guessed an additional EXP buff would make training so much faster than other classes? And your first Tri-Node. Mecha Purge, all modes, Hypergram Field, and Triangulation. Triangulation not so much. Instead of Triangulation, I would probably put on Combat Switch, or even Beam Dance maybe. But Triangulation is handy for additional damage killing elites. Oh, now my favorite steal. Oofda. The one that made me want to play this class. Oh, it's so worth it. Oh, there is a drawback to this, that it takes forever and a year to charge this damn thing. Oh, it's so good. It feels so good. It's just when an elite boss spawns, you just start charging it. By the time you can damage them, bind them, nuke them, they're gone. It's so nice. Obviously, resistance infantry takes the next spot. Still, in my eyes, the most overpowered 5th job skill. It is incredibly versatile for both bossing and mobbing. Absolutely worth its spot. Then your second boost node, or if you're having trouble bursting elites, I would put on Last Resort next. But I put on the boost node since with Joanuh's gear donation, I am very, very strong here. And then pretty much from this point up until like 235, I kind of forgot to add new skills. So my next one was the will skill. Then my Aegis and Pinpoint boost nodes, combat switch as well. And then character building. I brought that in at 230, I remembered, to make the node. Core overload, its mobbing capabilities aren't really that useful. And if you're already nuking elites enough with what you have, it's not entirely worth the slot, but it's okay enough for weekly bossing. Your second boost node, and then the final one that you'll swap in for your burst is Overdrive. This, like, there's so much range inflation built into all of these buffs. Oh man, you'll go from like 10 mil range to 50 mil range just buffing up. Your burst is actually nuts, but the drawback of it being your burst takes forever to set up. But once you get it down, it feels pretty smooth, it's just kind of delayed. For the training, 200 to 210, I trained in Forked Road 1. Now with Xenon, honestly, if you're going to train Xenon, I would highly recommend just pick a map, pick any map. Literally, this class has so many tools at its disposal. You can farm anywhere. Not even joking, you can farm anywhere. Your map control is so good. You can farm Eastern Cave Path, you can farm below the cave. Either one, perfectly fine. But I did Forked Road 1. Because hey, I don't have to buy Firestarter service. Super duper handy. For this map, my rotation was set your purple hypergram field. Also, for the hypergram field, you'll almost always want it on purple. It's your main mobbing field, and it's super duper strong, so it works hand in hand. And then over on this side, you cycle Fusion Field and Lucid Soul to take care of this side. And then you just jump in the middle, and with your aerial strike, you just clear the whole map. It's super duper fast. Like, I made it out at 210 in under 2 hours on this character. It's pretty nuts. Xenon is so good at mobbing. I honestly, if you don't like this map, again, try any map. Xenon has the tools to make any map work. It's so good at farming. It's like a sleeper class. I never heard people praise this class for its mobbing capabilities before I started playing, and holy cannolis, it deserves more praise than it gets. Also, another thing with this class, when you just log in, this class has a lot of setup. If you DC, the first minute after you log in is just going to be setting up your skills again. You gotta turn on your 3 toggles, you have to set your loaded dice, you have to make sure all of your skills are on the right settings. I guess I should go over those. For your second job, the Quicksilver takeoff is the one I used mostly, because honestly your little slash here is worthless. Your whip is just super duper slow and it's not worth using. This is just a really, really handy free up jump. Mix that in with your diagonal dash, or diagonal chase I think they call the skill. You just have so much mobility, and those two combined are pretty much why I didn't use rope lift on this class. Oops. Definitely don't want that selected. Oh god, skipping over it. Okay. For your main 4th job mobbing skill, you got Snipe for your bossing. Aerial for that first map there, honestly I only used it for 200 to 210 because again with no attack speed it's really, really slow. I just didn't like how delayed the attacks felt. So I used the laser for a majority of my training on this character. For your field, obviously you almost always want it in purple, it's just the best mobbing field. And then for this, I left it on this just because of the three, it's kind of the most useful. You can use the rockets as an additional way to keep yourself in the air. It's kind of handy for Spirit Savior, but unless you're really strong, it's not amazing for mobbing. Honestly, this is pretty trash for mobbing too, so don't worry about getting this super high on your boost nodes. The hitbox on this is really bad. Like, you'll see that it goes all the way out to here. The hitbox is more like right around here. It's so awkward. But those are the main settings you want to use. Now the maps I trained for 210 to 220, I actually trained on the Sky Whale for about half of them because I didn't want to buy Firestarter service. And again, Xenon can make literally any map work because they just have so much control. Frenzy down, put the giant field down here, and then you just jump, flash jump off, hit the other side, and then you're back in the center. So you jump in, flash jump over, and you'll just be clearing this top one with your laser, and then your summons will be down here clearing this. And when this expires, you replace Lucid in the middle, and then on one of the sides, or even if you just want to place it in the middle again, you can set your purple hypergram field, and that'll clear that. But I know a lot of people hate the whale maps, so I'll get out of this one pretty quick and go to the other map I used for 215 to 220, I think. Now this one is pretty much AFK farming. It's so easy. Lucid Soul or Fusion Field on the side, it will take care of pretty much the entire side. Your purple field there, and then you just stand down here and you attack left and right. It's pretty brain dead. It's super easy and super good. And then when Lucid Soul expires, you just cycle in Fusion Field, and bada bing bada boom, you're out of Choo Choo just as fast as you got out of Vanishing Journey. This class absolutely zoomed up until 235. And then I kind of took a break and played League of Legends for 2 weeks, so that's why this video is about as far away from the Demon Avenger video. Then for Lachlan, Rev Place 3, still the most overpowered map in Lachlan. It's pretty nuts. Same with most of the maps. Lucid Soul or Fusion Field on the house. Drop it down. Got your purple field taking care of this top platform. And then you just stand here and you attack left and right. And by golly, you're full map clearing again. That's gonna be a trend for Xenon. You're going to be full map clearing pretty much anywhere you go. It's such an insane farmer. It's so good. I can't believe I haven't heard nearly as much praise for this class as it deserves in its mobbing power. And again, like clockwork, super fast, and you're into Arcana. I think it took me less than a day to get out of Lachlan. Oh my goodness. Alright, and now for the map that I trained in for most of my levels, 225 till 250. We're back in our prison cell. But this time, we have the advantage of being a crazy overpowered farmer. Now, this one has a 2-step or a 3-step rotation. The 2-step rotation has a little bit of downtime between your Fusion Field and your Lucid Summon, so I opted not to do it even though it was slightly more efficient. But the 3-step rotation is pretty much, you want to be kind of towards the right side of this platform so that when you drop down, Fusion Field will take that entire side, walk over, put Lucid, you can even drop Infantry if you want, and then kind of like Wild Hunter, you're kind of just jump attacking here. One thing I'll say, this, especially if you don't have attack speed in her, this is a really awkward timing for your attack. It's not quite at the apex of your jump, and it's not in the middle of your jump. It's a little bit in between both. So even though I trained here for most of the way till 250, I'm still not 100% able to hit both platforms perfectly. It's just, I don't know if it's the attack speed or if it's just that awkward of a hitbox on the laser that it's only that really small sweet spot that you can get both, but that's your half rotation. And I would repeat that twice. Repeat that twice because, again, your cooldowns come desynced if you do the 1 rotation. And then once you have your fusion field up, you set fusion field so that it's in the center on the rope, jump up, drop your hypergram field, and then you get a breather. You just sit here and spin. Now you're missing those 2 mobs on the middle, but that is a-okay. You are literally insta-killing the map the second the mob spawns. Everything dies. This is like pre-nerf Ice Age tiers of map clear. The EXP is so good. It was even during 2x EXP that we had, it was even rivaling 0 in how fast it was getting EXP. It's absolutely insane how good this is. And then right before your fusion field expires, I would go on a loot cycle, clear the whole map. By the time you get down here, fusion field will expire, replace your purple field, drop lucid, jump up, and then just start attacking again. And if you're doing the 2 rotation, on your second rotation, if you'll notice here on my shift key is where I have force field, when you notice this has 12 seconds left, that's when I would do a loot cycle. Because by the time you get around the whole map, you'll get down here, you get into place, and then you can turn, and you'll be ready to set up your fusion field, jump up, drop your purple field, and then take your breather down here, full map clearing. It's a pretty handy built-in timer, but you don't have to pay super close attention to it. And then for the best map. I didn't use this one that much because, again, Esfera's always in an awkward spot for me on these 250s where I just don't have the Arcane Force to get the bonus damage on my Lucid Soul. So I really don't train here that much unless the rates are really, really good without Lucid Soul. However, this kind of relies pretty heavily on your Lucid Soul being able to 1 or 2 shot. But MTS4 was the best map for Xenon. Mostly because your purple field can clear all 3 of these by itself. And then over here, you drop your fusion field. I just dropped infantry when I dropped down because really there's no other place to put him on this map unless you drop him on the bottom. And then you just jump along the bottom and you clear these mobs. And it's pretty much full map clear again. Oh man. It's super nice when you have a class who's this versatile at farming. Like I was saying earlier, you can literally just pick any map and make it work. You have every tool at your disposal that you could possibly need to farm in almost any situation. And then when your fusion field expires, you just replace Lucid here. Then I would say, if you are using Lucid like that, drop infantry on cooldown on that platform. Because Lucid attacks slower and it hits fewer mobs than Fusion Field, so it needs all the help it can get in clearing that platform, but Fusion Field is up so quickly, it's not going to affect your rates that much if your Lucid Soul's 2 or 3 shotting. So this would probably be your place to go until 255 if you wanted your best EXP. Now, the mobbing out of the way, because honestly, the mobbing is just, it's so good. There's like no downsides to the mobbing on Xenon. The bossing side of Xenon. I mentioned earlier this class takes forever and a year to set up, and that's no joke. It's because of the Omega Blaster. As much as I love this skill, the fact that you have to charge it for 45 seconds to get the full duration out of it, oh, it's so weird. There's a lot of neat tips and tricks for this. Like, I have Omega Blaster on my F key. When you're charging, you have to keep that key held down. The second you let up on it, the skill casts, and you're just going whether you want to or not. But there's so many nifty tricks with it. You can hold the key down, and you can do anything else. You can type in chat, you can click out of the game, type in Twitch chat, keck W in somebody's chat, do a billion different things. As long as you're holding down the F key, the skill will keep charging. Like, it's really kind of unique and neat that you can just keep charging it while you're not even in game. It's just like, oh, I need to do my weekly bosses. All right, I don't want to spawn Seville just yet. Hold down the F key, find a nice song, click back in, one-shot Seville. But it's not just that though. Like Overdrive, Core Overload, Last Resort, Loaded Dice 5, setting down your Hypergram Field, setting down your infantry. using, what the heck's it called? OO parts, I think it is. OO parts, the buff here for 4th job. Using OO parts, refreshing this. There's just so many buffs before you actually just get to let go of that F key and just obliterate whatever in your path. But even as tedious as buffing up all those bajillion skills is and setting everything in its right spot, obliterating everything with Omega Blaster feels so good. Oh, it's so fun. I'm so glad that this skill baited me into playing Xenon. It's one of my favorite skills in the game. I don't know if anything's gonna pass it either. It feels so good to use. It looks so good to use. It kills anything. It's so good. And even if you just like quick cast it, you don't charge it, you can use it to just insta kill one of the platforms for Dream Defender, which is what I use to cheese my way through the floors daily, because swapping into damage gear just for Dream Defender is kind of annoying. But, oh man. Honestly, if you're on the fence about Xenon, play Xenon. The funding is difficult. Like, you can get by pretty easy, like, even if you're just using luck gear, because my stats aren't perfectly balanced for all stat, even though my base stats are. You can use just like piecemealed gear and still do good damage all the way into the mid game. It's honestly only towards the end game when you start needing those all stat lines that this class really starts to drag on how difficult it is to fund. And by that point you'll have a pretty good understanding of if you want to commit to that kind of funding, because it is difficult. All stat is pretty rough to get. But if you like Xenon by that point, oh man, play this class. It's so good. It's amazing at mobbing, as you saw. It's amazing at bossing. It's got some great burst. It's got great survivability. It's got every tool a class would want. And it's sitting pretty high at the moment on a potential main list for me. So if you guys are on the fence about Xenon, I highly recommend you give it a shot, even if it's just to level 200 for your Legion. It's one of the funner classes. Now the next 250, I'm not going to give away what it is, because it's a spicy one. It's probably going to take a while. But I hope you'll wait for that one. It's pretty spicy. But as always with these, if you have any questions about Xenon, about my grind for 10k Legion, about playing Maple Story in general, be sure to ask your questions down below. I make a point in all of these videos, even if you find this 6 months, a year down the line, I try to answer any and all questions you guys have, or if I don't know the answer, I'll point you in the right direction. I hope I see you in the next video. It's gonna be a spicy one. See you later.